In a world where one man must stand and fight, holding nothing but a tuber, and one woman, born to wolves, must learn to survive, holding nothing but a tuber, and one child, born in a tuber, must learn the true meaning of friendship with a wolf named Simon, and a spaniel named Wolf Blitzer must learn to dance like Barry Manilow's Aunt Cecile. Only one tuba can save us from an alien onslaught of dome-faced Phil Collinses. This summer, experience the movie critics are calling a movie. Flock to witness the winner of Best Shoes in a Ski Commercial by What Teeth magazine. Starring Glad Pustule, Neil Hoggelwader, and Patricia Dingleflair in a Magellan Rumpelflang film. Don't miss the After Movie Diner. I don't know, about 8 inches, depending on the weather. Hello and welcome to this episode of the After Movie Diner. While in the midst of hastily trying to edit together our Phantasm special, which will hopefully be coming up somewhere in the middle of next week, I put together this episode because I was conscious that we hadn't had one released this week yet. So here, without further ado, is a fantastic little episode that comprises a couple of events. First of all, an interview that I did recently with a fantastic composer of film scores, Stephen Endelman, and also a discussion with Jon Wallace about the recent, interesting and frustrating art house sci-fi flick Under the Skin, as well as Jonathan Glazer's other work, and a little bit about Bob Hoskins, Michael Caine, and some other stuff at the end of the show. So that's what you've got to look forward to coming up. It's going to be a great little episode. So again, as I've been doing the entire month of May, I want to urge everybody to go over to our iTunes page, Stitcher page, or TalkShoe page, and please rate and review us. Now, you can just rate us. It's really easy. You go to any of those pages and they have a star meter rating system, which you just can click on. It takes seconds. Absolutely, literally no time at all. You just go there, click on it, and it will really, really help. The higher the star meter and the more reviews we get, the more ratings we get, the more that the podcast goes up the chart. So please, 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 everyone who's listening to this, go to iTunes, Stitcher, or TalkShoe, type in After Movie Diner, and just rate us with a thing. And if you're feeling more generous and you've got a little bit more time on your hands, why not review us as well? Just 2 or 3 words. It doesn't matter if it's positive, negative, whatever it is. Just rate and review us. Just click, 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 and rate and review us. It's really simple, really, really quick. On iTunes, TalkShoe, or Stitcher, and that's After Movie Diner. Go there, rate and review us. Please, please, please. It would mean the world to us. Okay, so first up, we've got our interview with a fantastically talented, incredibly prolific, and highly accomplished film composer, Stephen Endelman, who's probably best known for works such as A Bronx Tale, The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill and Came Down a Mountain, and 2008's Red Belt. He also talks to us about being the first person to ever compose a movie by Peter Bogdanovich, which is coming out soon, and also the movie Rob the Mob, which recently came out to great critical reviews. So we talk about all that and more and find out where he's from. So please do listen to this fantastic interview with film composer Stephen Endelman. Enjoy. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, John?
Oh, I'm very good. And how's your week going?
My week's going pretty well, thank you. My week's going great. Where are you, John?
Well, I'm in New York, but like
right.
yourself, I sound like we're fellow Englishmen.
We are. Where are you from in England?
Well, I was born in Solihull, just outside Birmingham, but grew up mainly in the commuter belt just south of London, in the home counties.
Right, okay. And now you live in New York?
And now I live in New York, yeah.
Whereabouts in New York do you live?
I'm currently in Riverdale, which is just...
I know Riverdale.
Yeah.
No, I know Riverdale. I lived there for 16 years. So.
Oh,
Not
okay,
in Riverdale, I lived in Manhattan for 16 years. Anyway, your turn. Far away.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, we'll start off the interview just asking basically music and writing music and playing music. Where did that start for you? Where did that come from for you?
It started in England when I was 7 years old. It's actually when I think about it, strange story. I was fascinated by the local police band in London that I would watch on a Sunday afternoon play. And one of them played a clarinet, and I said to my mother, I want to play that. And she said, you do? And I said, yeah, I do. And so I did, and that was how the music started for me.
Sort of how did that blossom then? So from learning the clarinet to, eventually writing scores, but were you in orchestras or bands or anything like that growing up?
Oh, yeah, no, I was very lucky. I mean, I played clarinet, and then I went to the Purcell School for Young Musicians in London as a clarinetist, and then I went to Guildhall, and so I played in orchestras, and I did a lot of chamber music. It's Brahms' birthday today, so I did, a lot of Brahms, both chamber music and his sonatas, and a lot of classical music. And then I gradually, while I was at Guildhall, actually switched more and more over to composing, and so that's kind of what happened there.
And where did sort of films and television enter into it? I mean, were you a film fan as well growing up, or was that just an avenue you could see that would be a good career path?
No, actually, I was a film fan. Absolutely loved the movies, and I loved television, but I really loved movies. But I never really thought about the music in movies, and I certainly never imagined I would be doing today back then. I didn't think, oh, wow, I want to be a film composer. I never thought, I just wanted to be a composer. And then, as I got more into it, I learned more about that process. But it was never my ambition necessarily to be a film composer. I just wanted to write music. That's all I ever wanted to do.
But it's
around music.
Right. I mean, it is an area and an avenue where sort of a lot of the classical music, sort of modern classical music, is sort of being written. Obviously there are composers out there just writing classical pieces for orchestras and for chamber groups and things. But, film scoring and TV scoring, it's sort of the classical music of now. Would you agree, or?
Well, I guess to a certain degree I would say that. But I'm not sure that that's really fair, because I know I've read a lot about that, and I've heard a lot about it, but I think there's a huge difference between sitting down and writing a symphony and sitting down and writing a score for a movie. I think the score to the movie and the opera I can see that lineage very clearly.
Okay.
But writing a symphony is a completely different skill set, and any real film composer, other than, let's say, any contemporary film composer, will tell you that writing a long-form piece of music over 4 minutes is monumentally hard for them. But I grew up writing much longer pieces of music, so I don't find that a problem. I often find the opposite quite hard, actually.
Yeah. No, understood, and that makes sense. Just more, I guess, on a populist landscape, the idea of the soundtrack album, I guess, is going to maybe reach more people in the same way that classical music would have reached people when classical music was the music of popularity, I guess, is what I was trying to...
I think you're absolutely right. That's really a much better way of putting it, because if you think about it, we consider the magic flute a serious piece of music today. But when Mozart wrote it, he wrote it as a musical, like a folk piece. It was not for the aristocracy. It was for, regular folk. And I like that, and I think that to me makes more sense, because, of course, now that we have so much media available to everybody in our globe, then it's bound to change the landscape quite a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I mean, it's fascinating, and it's there's so many great scores out there. So you've scored lots of films and TV over the last 25 years. Are there a few scores, or indeed experiences of making certain scores that stand out for you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I have to say, I've never not enjoyed doing. I mean, one of the things that I really feel like I'm blessed is that I enjoy what I do. And I've enjoyed everything that I've ever done. I've never found myself a project that I haven't enjoyed. So, I mean, they go back right the way, I mean, what young man, not even 30 yet, finds himself sitting in a room with Robert De Niro working on a movie called The Bronx Tale? I mean, for one thing, it was totally amazing, to work with someone of that, that caliber
Yeah.
as an actor, as a director. But also, if you want to be in the movie business and I grew up hiding under my sheets and reading The Godfather because I knew my mother would absolutely go berserk if she knew that I was reading a book like that when I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And there I was working with the man. So that was memorable. Working on The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill, a movie that I still love to this day, a music that I still think was for the movie of its time for that movie. It was also the first score I was able to record in Abbey Road. So, I mean, there I was. Now I'm in the home of Edward Elgar. I'm thinking about both Dream of Gerontius and the Enigma Variations and everything else other than Elgar. And I'm writing this piece for this post-World War I film. It's after World War I, the movie set. So that was that. That was memorable. And then I've done many other scores, The Lovely I'm very proud of, and I mean, there's been a lot of movies and TV shows in between, to be honest.
And how closely do you like to work with a director? And are there certain directors out there that are really strong when it comes to working with composers that you've experienced? Oh
yeah, I mean, some are really good musicians. Raymond DeFilito, who I've done Rob the Mob with, and Two Family House, a fabulous musician, fabulous pianist, jazz pianist, great fun to work with. Really, really, really good fun. Bruce Beresford, of course, who sort of moves between movies and opera these days, very knowledgeable about music. Owen Winkler. I mean, I must say, David Mamet, apart from probably being America's most celebrated playwright, he also is very, very good with music. I mean, when I say very good with music, that doesn't mean that they impose their musical ideas onto a soundtrack. They don't go, oh, Stephen, write a chord there, or can you change that chord?
Yeah.
Unless emotionally it doesn't feel right for them.
But it's just that they understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose as a director they have to understand the place the music has rather than what the music is.
I think that's the truth, and that's often a great cause for conversation, I often find, where music goes and what it's trying to say, and that's very subjective because, you've got a lot of people involved in the process of making movies, and so it's very hard for everybody to be on the same page, and the director really has to steer the ship so that everybody ultimately is on the same page.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I had the fortune this last few weeks, I just finished this week, working with Peter Bogdanovich on his new movie. Now,
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to film history, he's kind of like way up there, isn't he? He really is.
Oh,
I mean, when
completely.
your first movies, when you see his roster of movies and his books, I mean, he's written either 14 or 15 books.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so passionate about this business, and he's so well read, and he knows so much. So I got to work with him, and I'm the first composer he's ever used on a movie. I'm the first. He would regularly say, Stephen, you're the first composer I've ever had actually write me a score. And I would say, really? And I'd go back and I'd go, yeah. And so, I mean, but he knows a lot more than he gives credit to in terms of music. But what a pleasure to work with somebody like that. And he's so respectful, and I'm so respectful of him. It was lovely.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely fantastic, a great filmmaker, and I was going to ask about what that experience was like, and obviously the projects you have coming up. But like you said, you worked recently on the film Rob the Mob. I know that you wanted to talk about that. So, how did that film come about for you?
Well, Raymond, who I'd worked with before 10 years ago, had asked me if I would read the script. I did. I loved it. And I thought, okay. And he said, okay, Stephen, so you're going to do the music, but what I want to do is I would like to come and cut the film after we shoot it. Can I spend 6 weeks in one of your rooms out here in Los Angeles, and I'll start cutting the movie, and I'll cut the movie. And I said, wow, that would be like my dream come true. Because we don't need a temp score. You don't have a temp score. I'll be writing. You'll be putting it in. We'll be talking. It'll be a totally collaborative experience. And that's exactly what we did, and that's what happened. And it truly was one of the best experiences I've had in terms of a process of collaborating with the editor, David Leonard, fabulous editor, and Raymond and myself. And, I'm very proud of that score.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I was listening to it earlier, and the obviously that's a rarity then to have something like that. Normally the composer, I guess, is working almost while the film is being put together, or certainly as the film is just about to enter post-production. Yeah,
this was the only other time I think I worked on a project quite as intensely with this was Flirting With Disaster with David O. Russell, where, he was there every day and I was working in my room and he was still editing. But I didn't have the editor in my room. I didn't have the editor sitting next to me in the next door room, and me throwing bits of music to him cutting them in, sending them back to me for changes, trying them in different places in the movie. So it really feels like a glove. The movie feels like it fits. The music feels like it fits in the movie like a glove, like a well-worn glove.
Yeah,
so nice.
I guess you're not trying to sort of second guess something. You've got the answers right there when you need them. So the score has a nice sort of mix of themes and different instrumentations and so on. Do you have a certain style, genre, or orchestration you prefer, or do you like the diversity of lots of different things?
No, I don't. You know what? I was having a conversation with a photographer the other day, and I was sort of talking about the use of light. How they, conceive of light, and over years they understand more and more about light the longer they do it. And I said, the same is for me. I don't need to. I know. I was working on a little bit of this movie yesterday, and I realized that I wanted to do something at the very front of the movie that a certain orchestration, right?
Yeah.
And I knew exactly what it was going to be because I know what these particular combination of instruments will sound like when I record them, so I can write them. And so the answer is I love working on a multitude of different types of music, and I don't really mind as long as I feel inspired. My score for David was, for Peter was very much sort of Django Reinhardt meets Louis Armstrong with some subtle changes.
Yeah.
Rob the Mob's completely different. You know what I mean? They're all different. So, yeah.
Excellent.
I love it.
Yeah, of course. And I actually was wondering, is there something you've discovered recently in music, either in the writing or the production of it, that is new or has surprised you or that you're currently getting a kick out of?
In my music or everybody's music? In anybody's music?
I mean, predominantly in your music, in the sort of either writing of or the production of a new instrument you've discovered, a new software program, whatever it is, something that's...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I bought a new instrument this week. I bought an Appalachian dulcimer.
Oh, lovely.
Which I just got. I know nothing... Well, I know about it, but I've never owned one. So I decided to buy one because I'm doing a movie that is set in Arkansas.
Right.
And I think, oh my gosh, I want to play. There it is, the dulcimer.
Lovely.
And it's a really beautiful instrument. So I'm going to experiment with that. And as far as software, no, I'm a Logic, Pro Tools, Ableton. I don't know how to use Ableton yet, but we have it. I really, you know what, I'm old-fashioned. You know, of course I have to use computers, and of course I'm looking at one right now. But I have to say that I still think like a composer who writes on a manuscript. The process is so similar to that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, you just try and perfect things, trying to get it better, trying to make the samples sound as musical as possible, even though I have a policy of always re-recording. With real musicians, I love having real players in whatever I do. For my demos, when I'm working on a movie and I've got to send demos before I record, I still, you know, I like to use the pedals and the faders to make music sound as real as possible.
Yeah. No, I just know that, I mean, I do fool around on guitar and things, just sort of writing silly songs mainly, but I know that you can, if you, you know, write a lot of songs and write a lot of music or are sort of prolific in it, there is a period where things start to feel similar and the same, and you wonder how you're going to get out of this rut, and then suddenly one day you don't know what you're doing, but you play a chord you've never played before, or you pick up an instrument you've never used before, and suddenly there's another door. And music has this wonderful way of doing that and kind of doing it organically. And I just wondered if, along with what you were doing currently, if there was anything that had happened that had sort of done that, or if that's something that you find, or whether, like now you were saying, you know the language of music and you know what instruments go together, and you have that now in your database. Or,
well, you know, I think another way of saying what you're saying, because for me, I don't know how I write what I write. Right? I say that genuinely. I don't understand. Sometimes I feel like sometimes that it's being channeled through me. And I know that sounds a bit quirky.
No, not at all. I understand.
Sometimes I can't remember. I'll listen to a piece of music that I wrote yesterday and I go, did I really write that? What, how? Or I'll listen to something that I wrote a year ago and I'll find it, and I'll listen to something maybe that I wrote for a concert hall and I'll go, wow. I'm really, you know, it's really quite beautiful or something like that, or I won't like it or whatever.
Yeah.
But generally I like what I write anyway, and so, I mean, in other words, I probably wouldn't write it or I'd change it. And I'm looking at the picture now, and I'm working on this scene, and I'm introducing this character who's a farmer, but he's actually playing the character of a devil. No, it's not a horror movie or anything like that, but he's the devil farmer. You know, he's playing the part of the devil.
Yes. In
disguised as a farmer in this new film. And I've written something that's kind of, I think is kind of going to be very interesting, and you know, because the combination of banjo, solo violin, strings, odd percussion, treated samples that I've created for it, these background sort of almost like otherworldly sound effects in a movie that is not a horror movie, it's a drama, it's a football drama. So there's just this conflict between these two, God and the devil. I know it's complicated, but it's not that complicated.
No, okay.
Anyway, so yeah, but you're right. Whatever, yeah.
No, I'm always interested when I'm speaking to other musicians just to see whether they have those moments as well, and it seems to be a fairly common one. So, just finally then, sort of what's next for you, and was there any more information about the Peter Bogdanovich movie coming up, or indeed anything you wanted to say about Rob the Mob to promote that or anything? No,
well, I'm very proud of Rob the Mob. You should try and check out the record on iTunes and Amazon, I guess, and all those places. Mm-hmm. Movie's really, really good. Peter Bogdanovich, completely different type of movie. I'll be in New York at the end of the month for the film mix of that. But I love the process, love the movie. I'm doing another movie now that will be out probably, they want to get it out by the end of the year. And then I have a TV show airing, which we got picked up for 21 episodes, which I'm extremely excited by and proud of. Different musical style for me, almost completely. Much more progressive, indie kind of, not rock and roll, but it's much more, you know, it's different. It's not orchestral. It's the total opposite of what I would normally, not the opposite, as I've done lots of popular stuff in the past, but it's not something you may associate me with. Right. I'm loving that. It's called Chasing Life. And it's a 1 hour drama, and it's a really good show that I think young people particularly, are really going to be inspired by, because it's about this young woman beautiful young girl from Boston, first job journalist, ends up finding out that she has AML, leukemia. And how do you go about dealing with your everyday life when you have a life-threatening disease that's definitely going to ruin your 20s? How do you deal with it? How do you come out of it? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Do you fight? Do you tell the guy you fancy? Do you tell your boyfriend? Who are you going to, it's all that. And they are doing it really well. And I feel quite proud to be associated with it.
Well, that's fantastic. Everyone should look out for that, definitely, by the sound of it.
Yeah, it's really good.
And is there something, just on that question then, because you've got a TV show coming up, is there something, obviously this one is a bit different as you've described, but is there something between scoring TV, film, video games, whatever it is, are they different mindsets, or do you kind of come at them the same way?
I actually think having done it like this for long enough now, I think I come at it the same way. You get more time in a movie, then kind of you are on a TV show for a long time, so then you get to do different things, you get to try things. Like I'm on episode 14 of this TV show now, and I've decided yesterday, I said, okay, we're going to change it up a bit. I want all new sounds by tomorrow morning kind of thing, and so, my assistant and I go to work creating some new sounds, and then I'm going to work with those and see what happens. And when I score episode 14 at the beginning of next week on my movie, I've already decided those, so now I'm working away on that. I'll record that. I think it's about 5 weeks' time.
So, well, that all sounds fantastic. It sounds great. I'm looking at the cast now of the Peter Bogdanovich movie, and it looks, if it's got that kind of cast, it's got him behind it. It's going to be hilarious by the looks of it.
Well, it's very, very funny. It's very funny, and it's smart, and I like that too. I'm lucky. I'm lucky. There isn't a movie that I think I've done that I wouldn't be able to show my grandchildren when I have grandchildren.
Yeah. Of course. Well, look, congratulations on everything that's going on,
Thank
Stephen,
you
and we
very much.
obviously wish you the best going forward. And thanks ever so much for being on the After Movie Diner today. It was great speaking to you.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show.
You're welcome, sir. Anytime, and have fun in New York when you come up and see us next month or whenever that is.
6 months, yes, I will for sure. Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
This song is Love and the Gun. It's available on the Rob the Mob soundtrack with music by Stephen Endelman, lyrics by Raymond De Filita, sung by Tamela D'Amico, and translations in Italian by Tamela D'Amico and Josette De Carlo.
Pistola.
Okay, well, we hope you enjoyed that. And now coming up, my conversation with none other than old friend of the show, wonderful fella, soon-to-be published sci-fi author himself, the absolute splendid, one of my oldest, dearest, and greatest friends. It's none other than Mr. Jon Wallace. Let's kick off this conversation, shall we? Okay, so we're going to talk about Scarlett Johansson in Under the Skin. And who directed this again?
So it's by someone good.
Oh, he did Sexy Beasts, didn't he?
Jonathan Glazer.
Jonathan Glazer, that's it, yes. Jonathan Glazer's sci-fi... Or what is it? It's just... I mean, I suppose it's art house, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to sum it up from what you remember?
Okay, from what I remember, Under the Skin is about I presume, alien woman who has come to Earth, is driving around Scotland in a old white van, picking strangers up, seducing them, taking them to an old house in the country, which is really a black, gloopy pool of whatever, that drags these guys under and sucks off their skins or something. I don't really know what it does. Then what happens? She gets lost or something. Like there's these guys on motorbikes that are seemingly helping her or hindering her. I'm not sure. But she picks up a guy with like massive facial defects or something, and then she gets lost in the mists of Scotland. Then she's waiting for a bus, and she ends up going to this guy's house, and they don't talk to each other, but he still gives her a room and food and heat and everything like that. But they don't really talk to each other, but he's a gentleman to her, but they don't really say anything to each other. And then she goes out into the woods, and a guy tries to rape her, and then finally kills her and sets fire to her or something.
Yeah.
That's I mean, that's kind of what happens.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, it's an interesting thing because insofar as it deserves to be talked about as an interesting film, which for me it doesn't really deserve that much kudos, and certainly not half as much respect as it has been getting.
We can also talk Sexy Beast if you want to later. We can sort of tack that on if you like, but.
Yeah, no. But I suppose the thing is that one of the things that got talked about a lot was the development. As far as I know, the development of the film was slow and a bit torturous. And I believe that from stuff that I read Johansson saying that he changed his mind like quite a few times about how he was going to do it. Because if you read up about the book, which I've just been doing, the book's got loads of stuff to it, and you can tell that it would be quite a hard book to adapt because there's this whole thing about her alien culture and this whole operation, and it's all explained and told. And this is one of those films. The thing about Under the Skin, which it does, which I have no problem with to begin with, is it does that thing, doesn't it, of going, well, nothing's going to be spoon-fed to you. You're going to have to figure this out, what's going on.
Right.
And I like that,
Sure.
And to begin with. But then the problem is that you do eventually want there to be some kind of explanation. You want there to be some kind of... I'm not saying, write it all down onto, cue cards and hold them up to the screen, but some kind of coming together of what's been... of what you're beginning to piece together. And to be fair, even after the film, where to be honest, I was quite annoyed, I did think we are talking about it quite a lot, figuring out what happened, so that's something that can be said for it. But for me, the problem with it was, I don't know what it was like for you, but I got sort of halfway through and I thought, right, this isn't going to go anywhere now. I can tell this isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to carry on doing this very oblique stuff with her, like driving around and picking people up, and just like you said, like it's hard to actually explain exactly what's happening to them, and that's no problem in of itself. But you do kind of want you want to learn more about her, not just watch her blank face as she drives about. I mean, for what she did, she was really good.
She's really good in the movie, and I thought her British accent was really, really good. And
spookily good. British accent, spookily good.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. And I thought that, I mean, essentially the bullet point metaphor, the bullet point sort of story that's happening here is the whole idea of, through the course of these liaisons that she's having, which are really kind of conversations that initially sound scripted or sound like that she's been told what to say by her alien masters or whatever in order to get like a young guy in the van and in order to get whatever. But basically she asks a lot of questions and she is sympathetic and soft and caring, to these guys that she's picking up, even to the guy with the horrible facial disfigurement, because she doesn't see, for her, she's not initially seeing the humanity or the person or anything like that. For her, it's all just about the mission. However, there is something about the humanity I guess she's beginning to feel. And then there's that scene where she looks in the mirror and looks at herself, like really looks at herself for the first time since she started with this body or whatever it is she's put on. And it intrigues her. And then she feels guilty about the misshapen head guy who's actually a real guy who has tumours. He has this problem which has benign tumours grow on his face. She lets him go, and he actually gets hunted down by the motorbike guys who are a bit more ruthless. But essentially she starts to feel more human, or starts to begin to feel about what it means to be human, or what it means to be wearing this skin. There's lots of scenes of her like looking at herself naked in the mirror and things like that. And she gets... The trouble is that the first hour of the movie is this endless cycle of van stuff that doesn't really go anywhere. Then there's this bit where she's shown the kindness of strangers, or the best side, one would say, of humanity, where she is taken in, she is carried over a puddle at one point, all this sort of stuff. She's given food, he is romantic with her, and he gets physical with her, but not in an aggressive way. And then right after that, when she goes out into the woods, she sees the very worst of humankind, and then it ends. That's as much as I can kind of put together with it.
Yeah. But the thing was, when she was just driving around at the beginning, I was actually quite liking it to start with, because I was like, because I thought it's going to go somewhere, and I did think the scene of what happens to these guys that she brings back to this, and the house was fabulously creepy as well, that she brings these people back to.
Yeah, it was proper old and run down.
Yeah, and she takes them in, and there was this special effect, and it came after quite a while, didn't it? It was probably about 40 minutes in or something that you actually saw what happened to these guys, and I thought that was brilliantly done and very spooky, and kind of what we were talking about before we started recording in terms of Raimi. I just felt there wasn't enough of that style, because he's got a really good crazy style. The same thing in Sexy Beast. With the end of Sexy Beast, we were coming out, and I remember, because we went to see Sexy Beast in Edinburgh, and you came up to see me, and we were coming out of it going, Sexy Beast was such a satisfying experience for me, because I remember going to see that film with you and going, are we really going to go and see like the 15th post-Lock, Stock gangster movie that's come out, in the last couple of years? Are we really going to go and see that? And then it was this totally bonkers inversion of what you expect from people, the performers, and what you expect from that kind of movie, and all this kind of stuff. Whereas this, it had this really brilliant visual moment where she brings the guys back and you see them in this sort of strange goo, and it's brilliantly done. And I thought, like, wow, so now he's going to like start laying on this like crazy otherworldly stuff, and it's going to build, and you're going to find out more about the guys on the motorbikes, and you might even see a bit of them. And because I thought it was going to build from this very slow, very earthy, realistic thing into this completely bonkers space thing. Not actually out in space, but this completely otherworldly kind of a thing from this utterly earthy Glasgow setting at the beginning. And I thought, this is going to be completely amazing. And then it went on for about another half hour of her driving around Glasgow. And I thought, so there isn't going to be any more of that. It's just going to... And then there was a really good special effect at the end as well, but for no other purpose than to give it a sort of whimsical, it's one of those like, this could have a million different meanings, couldn't it? Kind of an endings where you go, well, yes, and that's just annoying because
it was sort of a whimsical tragedy, wasn't it? The ending,
yeah.
Because you're supposed to have gone from, or her character arc, if there is anything, is she's gone from soulless, cold, alien, we need to eat your skins, or whatever it is that they're doing in order, one presumes, to either fuel themselves or
in the book
eat themselves or continue to exist or whatever it is.
Yeah, and sorry to cut in, but I was just, like I said, I was reading the book summary, and the book summary has all this stuff about, she comes from this, I'm interested in reading the book now, it's shortlisted for the Whitbread Prize, and someone said that the guy who wrote it has the best feeling for a sentence since Joseph Conrad, so it's obviously worth the read.
Definitely.
But the book has all this stuff about, she comes from this race for whom human meat is a delicacy, and her body has been transformed into this human shape, and she's sort of disgusted by this shape. And so she's basically like a mutant, but she takes her job very seriously, and it's a sort of satire on like factory farming and all this. There's all this other stuff going on in it, and she in between gathering people, she sits on this beach and sort of marvels at the beauty of the earth because her planet is so grim and everyone lives on...
there's that whole sequence I completely forgot where they're trying to get a dog out of the ocean and two guys drown and die in front of her, essentially.
Yeah, and that was, that was all fine and everything, but in the book, apparently, there's this whole thing about her, finding the Earth beautiful compared to her horrible planet and all this sort of a thing. So there's obviously a lot more going in there, but at the same time, you can see how that would be difficult to do. But I don't need him to like tell the story of the book, but I just felt like I thought it was going to pull off, or at least have a go at pulling off like a really amazing transformation from this, the most like, documentary style earthy grittiness at the beginning to this totally bonkers otherworldly thing, and it just didn't do it, and it carried on doing the driving around Glasgow thing, and then you say there was the thing at the end with the guy, but I to be honest, that didn't really affect me that much.
Well, the thing that frustrated the hell out of me is that each time she picked someone up in the van, she sort of asked them more questions and was sort of getting more verbal. But then this guy picks her up at a bus stop and there's no dialogue. And I'm like, I don't care how nice you are and I don't care how attractive Scarlett Johansson was. If you brought some strange woman home and she literally said nothing to you for days, he takes her to a castle ruins and a bunch of other stuff happens. There's no dialogue. And I was like, this would have been the time. For example... I didn't even need it to go all fucking sci-fi necessarily if, as the film had gone on, she'd become more and more vocal. Because there's a way to do everything that you're talking about, seeing the beauty of the earth and the kindness of strangers and I feel funny in my skin and blah, 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 blah. And it's very, very difficult to do it with no dialogue at all. And like you say, ScarJo did like the best possible... job she could have possibly done, and I did ultimately get some of the points that you're mentioning, but I was like, talk, for the love of God, talk.
Yeah.
It was driving me nuts. That ending sequence where she's in that guy's house, I'm like, say anything. Say thank you for the food he gives you. Say
Yeah.
Is this my bed? Or what? Like, because she clearly knows English because she talks at the beginning of the movie. I'm like, how dare you become a silent movie just when you could actually get interesting?
That just makes it more interesting to me in a way. I'd be interested in speaking to having a completely honest conversation with Glazer and saying what happened. Did you try and write? Did you throw out like 3 scripts because they weren't working, and you settled on this like, oh, I'll do a kind of Le Samurai kind of like you say, like the sort of silent, moody thing, because I've tried the script to do a dialogue-y script 10 times and it keeps coming out phony or shit, or I don't know, because Sexy Beast, one of the best things about Sexy Beast, which for anyone who hasn't seen it, it was his like big breakthrough movie. It's Ray Winstone, Ben Kingsley in a British gangster movie, but like I say, it's a very different gangster movie, and it does everything it can to do a gangster movie in a completely different way. There's loads of influences, of course.
You've got Edward Fox and the guy whose name I always forget, but I really like now, Lovejoy. What's his name?
Oh yeah,
Ian McShane.
Ian McShane.
Yeah.
And that was packed with all this like fizzing, crazy dialogue like the whole way through between Ben Kingsley and Ray Winstone. And what's brilliant about it, because for anyone who hasn't seen it, when you hear the name Ray Winstone, then you think, right, okay, I know what I'm getting. I know who that character is. I know I've got a rough idea of the kind of things he's going to be saying. Like you just know, because he always plays the same part. Whereas in this film, what was brilliant, and even back then, he was this one-part guy. And what was brilliant about the film was it made Ben Kingsley the terrifying one, and proper terrifying as well, and Ray Winstone. And it was all done, it's interesting you're saying about Under the Skin, it was all done through great dialogue.
Yeah.
Like,
and Ray Winstone was essentially the one who...
He was terrified of him. And
he was terrified, and he's almost a little bit pathetic. It was a nice turn.
I thought what was best about it, the thing that really, really resonated about it for me, and I suppose it's because it was done in a very English way, and it's probably it is a different thing for the United States, but I think it would still resonate for anyone from the States who saw it. For me, it perfectly captured those people who you meet in life, who are like Ben Kingsley's performance and the way Ray Winstone reacts to him. When you meet someone and you're like, you are completely terrifying in how far away you are from like reason, and like you're a properly crazy person, but a violent, dangerous, crazy person. Like when you meet someone like that, it perfectly captured like what that's like. Because Ray Winstone was fantastic, because he just has this look on his face the whole time of like of someone who is incredibly carefully choosing their words and trying not to make this guy angry because he's so terrified of him. And it just did that brilliantly. But
there's also a bunch of stuff in... There's the whole, like Donnie Darko-esque rabbit with a machine gun and all that kind of stuff that's going on in Sexy Beast, like dream sequences and stuff. There's also a really grotesque insinuation of a liaison with Ian McShane that is quite disturbing.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I have a vague memory of something of that nature, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, because there's this, like, louche upper-level gangster aristocracy that's kind of having these very 60s-like orgies, but they're all kind of... It's Edward Fox just kind of sitting around, being a bit bisexual and a bit creepy, with a bunch of, like, naked chicks and things, like a... fucking Jimi Hendrix album cover or performance or something. But it's a nod to performance, isn't it, with him and Mick Jagger. But then there's something to do with Ian McShane as well, and there's like a really horrendous bit where they all have to drill. He has to do one last job in England. There's this really claustrophobic thing with this drilling and stuff, which is miserable.
Really intense, and you don't really know what's happened. And oh, that's right, because we can't say, but it's very, very intense. And brilliantly done. And the thing about Under the Skin where it was just such the opposite experience, because like I say, when we went in Edinburgh, this is proper long time ago. This is what must be 2002 or something, like over a decade ago. And
It was your 21st birthday. I'm sure that's why I was up. And then,
oh right, and you, like I say, you go in with this sort of I suppose this will be all right kind of a feeling, and then it was just so different. It blew your socks off, and this was so different as well. But it looked, for me, I think the reason why I found it frustrating is it looked like it was not necessarily what I'm saying about loads of amazing special effects or whatever, but just like it was going to be much, much more than it was. And you're right, I think that it could never have done that without her talking more and saying more and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't need to hit the nail on the head. It just needed to have some dialogue. And even if you don't want to give it to her, you could have at least given it to, like, the people that she picked up. And, I appreciate the whole, like, we're going to make it realistically and we're going to use actual people on the street of Glasgow and we're going to use non-actors and blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, he had such a... Even in the scenes that aren't surreal or even the scenes that aren't intense in Sexy Beast, he had such an interesting and pleasing visual storytelling style that to kind of reduce it to this almost handheld camcorder kind of footage was just a bit irritating. And then when no one said anything and there was no dialogue, it wasn't that I needed a story explaining to me, because I really didn't think that it was as deep as it thought it was at all. And seemingly, from what you're saying about the book, it's not anything that I didn't already guess from the movie. But
yeah,
I could have just done with some dialogue, because people in reality, they speak.
Yeah, I mean, I still could have. I've got to be honest. I still could have used more sci-fi, amazing, like effect stuff. I could have used more of that.
Oh, completely. You could have gone that way, but what I'm saying is the movie as it stands, if you don't change anything about it at all in terms of where the story goes, the only thing I would change is have dialogue. That's all I meant. I didn't mean I wouldn't have loved it to have gone sci-fi, because I would have done.
There was a brilliant bit near the beginning and it's total blink and you'll miss it, where she takes one of these, it's right at the beginning when her character first appears. You see this van drive up at this tower block, and it's totally blink and you'll miss it, but just above the tower block you see these lights in the sky above the tower block, and they suddenly dart away really, really quickly, and it's this like perfectly realised thing about how you imagine a UFO sighting would be, sort of this sort of glimpse of something completely otherworldly in the sky, and it's just brilliant. And it was totally blink and you'll miss it, and I was like, oh, that's a nice little trick, I like that, Glazer. And then there was the thing with the a lot of driving around Glasgow, but then there was a really, really good special effect, and I thought, this is going to build, it's going somewhere, and then it didn't really do that much.
No. There were a lot of penises in the movie.
She
is
is incredible. There were a lot of penises, but there was also Scarlet naked, and so obviously a huge part of this movie's thing with the like sci-fi geek community was a lot of people saying, I'm sure the reason this film will get some kind of release in America, or what it obviously has, is, Scarlet naked. It should, in many respects, it could just be called Scarlet Naked. And what's brilliant about her naked is that she has such a real body. It's like an amazing body, but it's a real body. It's not that sort of really muscly, toned kind of a thing, and that was really important that was the case. That's why she's perfect for it, is because she has a real shape to her. Yeah. And so that when she's looking at her body in the mirror and everything, it's like, it wouldn't have worked if it had been, some incredibly, like I say, like Madonna-esque figured Hollywood star. It just wouldn't have worked. Whereas she really looked like a real girl when she was looking at herself.
There's nothing sexual about it at all. In terms of the nudity, even the bits where she's in her underwear trying to seduce the guys, it's not seductive.
It's really creepy. It's really
not
creepy.
Seductive.
And was there good music or was there annoying music?
Yeah, it was annoying music. It was all that atonal one note.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like in the distance music, where you're almost trying to hear the music and it's not quite there, and but it's not there.
Better score would have been
better score, some dialogue. I mean, not that it needed to be like Hollywoodized or something, but it needed way more than it had. I just thought it was a piss poor excuse to put this out as a film and go, oh, there, you see? Because it's not like... You don't come away from it and go, wow, that was spellbindingly intelligent and I have no idea what that means. It wasn't so, like, something like 2001 A Space Odyssey, which it was compared to. Like, it was a lot of people going, oh, Kubrick-esque magnificence and all this sort of stuff, which is utter drivel. But something like 2001, the imageries in that movie, a lot of it is completely impenetrable. Like, you don't really know what's going on, and it could be read in lots of different ways, and it's some vague thing about the circle of life and blah 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 blah. But there isn't really a big thing about it. Whereas with this movie, I felt like, okay, I get it. I get what's going on. There's not some big thing that, oh wow, multiple meanings, but it's just very unsatisfying, really. Especially considering the way it ends. The way it ends, you're just like, oh, okay, so I'm... like, you're not even going to give me a little bit of... Not because I didn't know who she was or what she was doing, but because I would have liked to have known more about her, just through dialogue and interaction. Like, I actually liked her. Like, I was enjoying watching Scarlett Johansson act. And she was so good with the dialogue on the few occasions that she had it, almost disarming in her polite generosity, soothing, calming, like almost disarmingly so, because we're so unused to people in the world being that way anymore. Like people giving a shit about us. It always has to be that we have to start giving a shit about other people. It's so rare you get asked a question. You're always asking them. And that was a really nice touch. And I just wanted to see that developed. Like, I didn't really care. Like, okay, she's an alien and she's wearing someone's skin and blah, 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 and human beings and this, that. I don't really care. I want to just learn more about it. You know what I mean? I just feel... But she gave a really good performance. I couldn't come away from it. The one good thing I'll say about it is I couldn't come away from it and dismiss it. I couldn't come away from it and just go...
No,
artistic driven.
I mean, that's the thing, because I thought it built. That's just what I'm saying. It built up a load of goodwill from me, and then lost it, and that's the thing, which actually is quite rare. I can't think of many movies that. Well, actually, it does happen a lot with science fiction. It happens a lot with science fiction. I mean, I always thought that Event Horizon was an amazing movie that completely blew it at the end. I always thought. I mean, it's not the same thing. But well, in a way, it kind of is actually. When it became sort of in the mouth of space madness, it really full on went that way. I mean, it's totally enjoyable, but it does kind of I did kind of think, that wasn't quite that didn't quite reach the heights that the rest of the movie suggested it might. It was the same with Sunshine as well. I thought Sunshine was brilliant up until about 2/3, 3/4 of the way through, and then when it became kind of Event Horizon Part 2, really, I was like, oh right, you've kind of copied something that was not really that satisfying in the first place.
Yeah.
In terms of endings, I mean, even with 2001, I have to admit, I've never really loved 2001 because I always find the first half with like apes, Leonard Rossiter in a space station, Hal, and it's probably the first 2/3, completely amazing. Like nothing else. Just even now, just so much better. A realization of space and like actually being out there and on spacecraft, traveling out on some amazing mission. Like just the epicness of it and the music and the score of that film is just so mind-blowing. And then when it became a load of 60s colour and babies floating in space and stuff, it totally loses me, to be honest. And I think, like,
no, completely. And I wasn't using it as an example of a movie that I really love. I was just using it as a lot of people had made the comparison because there are a few sort of trippy sequences in Under the Skin. They'd made the comparison with 2001, and all I was saying was like 2001 is at least so oblique that you can kind of talk about it ad nauseum, whereas this was neither as oblique as it thought it was, nor as satisfyingly detailed as it should have been, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, that's true. That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, because you're right. Because Kubrick basically just went, well, I'll just go completely mad,
Right.
And they'll be able to, come up with theories about this till the cows come home.
I think 2001 he did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 2001 he did purely as a technical exercise. I don't think he really gave a shit about the storytelling in that movie at all.
No. Yeah, but it is. But that is a problem with a lot of science fiction movies for me. I'm not saying it's easy. It's obviously one of the hardest things in the world to come up with a good ending.
Yeah.
Especially when you do this thing. I mean, I guess where you're right that where Under the Skin doesn't quite compare to movies like that is it's not really doing that thing of the epicness and the vastness of existence that stuff like Sunshine and 2001 do. It's not trying to do anything like that. It's a lot more. It's totally the opposite. So it's not.
Instead of the beach scene being about the beauty of the world or nature, it was about the fragility of life, because you see
the really grisly, realistic death scene, like accidental death scene. I mean, it was just horrible. It was. I mean, really well done. Horrible.
Yeah, I mean, a woman is running after her dog into the ocean. The really turbulent, like North Sea, gets pulled under. Her husband or boyfriend or whoever it is running after her, fully clothed, into the water as well, being knocked about. Then this guy who's from Sweden.
No, it's like a little girl in the water, isn't it? It's
No.
wife.
It's his wife or girlfriend going after the dog. They have a baby. There is a baby on the beach that is sat on a towel up where the husband was, or the boyfriend. The boyfriend runs into the ocean after his wife. There's a guy in a wetsuit who's Norwegian or Swedish or something, who's there on holiday, windsurfing or something, or bodyboarding or whatever. He runs in to try and stop the man from dying too, because it's clear that the tide has just pulled this, because it's really turbulent, and the tide has clearly pulled his wife under and probably into the rocks, as they can't see him anymore. And he tries to drag the guy out of the ocean and let them go, and then a big wave comes and carries them off, and they both go under as well. So all three adults die. Scarlett Johansson is left watching the whole thing, and then the baby is left on the beach by itself, completely orphaned.
No, Scarlett. One of them washes up on the beach, and Scarlett does something pretty terrible to him and drags his body off to munch.
Oh yeah. Yes, of course, yeah. Yes.
Just to give away a big section of the film there. But,
that's fine.
But it's very, very grisly, and it's not so. Yeah, so it's turned inward on very realistic, earthy, grisly scenes like that, as opposed to what another science fiction movie does in terms of the meaning of existence kind of stuff. With Sunshine's the Earth is dying, in 2001 the alien intelligence kind of a thing. So it's probably a slightly different problem, but it's so I suppose that's where it falls down. Is it tries to have that sort of philosophical bent to it, but through being a bit oblique. But like you say, it requires more. You need more from it because it can't get away with that.
Right. Also, it wasn't saying anything so grand about the human condition or human nature that you couldn't read on the back of a matchbox. Because, life is fragile. Yes, people stupidly love their dogs to the point where they're going to run into the North Sea and drown over them. I wouldn't personally. I'd be looking after my baby, but that's me. But because if a dog is stupid enough to go out into the ocean where it can't swim, why would I die after a dog? I'd rather look after my baby and my husband in that case. But and then there's this whole, and some people are kind and some people are mean, and some people are violent and some people are nice, and some people are disfigured and some people are beautiful. And I mean, what's it saying? It's not really.
Yeah. So how did you like her? How did you like Scarlett in Captain America?
I thought she looked funny. It was a weird tan thing going on where she was too tanned, and I didn't like the whole central parting hair straight thing. That was really weird looking. because it's like the third look that Black Widow has had, and I just wish they would have a fucking look for her. But aside from that, the only reason I mention that, and it's not I like Scarlett to look beautiful or whatever. It's not that. It's that I found her look genuinely off-putting, and therefore it bothered me throughout the movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, it bothered me. I was like, why is she so tanned? Like, is there... why have they put this on her? It looked really bad. And her hair was too dyed red. Like, it was too fake. Everything, it was just... I don't know. It was like someone's idea of what beautiful is meant to be, and she's so much better looking when she's more natural. Anyway, so that bothered me. But in terms of her character, I was like, well... she's now what, the third incarnation of the Widow. Like, the first one, she's just someone for Tony Stark to kind of ogle over, and then she turns into like a kick-ass woman at the end of the movie. In the Avengers, there's this whole thing about her backstory with Hawkeye and the fact that she's a master manipulator. And it isn't really about her physical prowess. It's about how good she is with men's minds and people's minds in general. And then in this one, I mean, in this one, like, who was she? She wasn't the master manipulator she was in the past. There was a whole bunch of vague stuff about how, well, you can't trust me even though I'm clearly your girl Friday. There was no mention of Hawkeye at all, which just had me like, what the hell? Why is she even in this movie? And then, yeah, okay, she did a bunch of action stuff. And then at the end, everything that she does by what I like to call the Serenity ending of Captain America, which it was, by the way, because the ending in the movie is not what happens in the Winter Soldier comic books. So it was completely something that Whedon was trying to redo from Serenity, or someone just stole out wholesale from Serenity. What happens when she reveals all her stuff online is like has no weight and bearing to it because we don't know what that stuff is. So it was in Serenity, the fact that they bring the whole world into the realization of the truth has some massive impact because you're aware of what it is they're revealing. But at the end of Captain America 2, what is she revealing? Then she goes to some Senate hearing where they're all like, well, blah, 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 serious talk. And she's like, no, swishy exit from Senate hearing because I win the superhero gang. Goodbye, swishy exit, swishy exit. And I was like, no, don't.
So,
don't go.
Speaking of goodbyes, there is something we definitely have to cover, which is goodbye to Bob Hoskins.
He's probably the only actor who's ever played Mussolini and Churchill. He's played both characters.
Really?
Yeah. There's part of me looking down his list of movies here. I could so go for doing a series of some obscure Hoskins movies because I could totally go for watching like A Prayer of the Dying. I could totally go with watching Heart Conditions again, Shattered, The Favour of the Watch and The Very Big Fish. I could totally go for that. The horrendously awful but quite fun at the same time Michael Caine action thriller Blue Ice is quite worth watching.
Yeah, Blue Ice, yeah. Blue Ice. What is Blue Ice again?
Oh, it's terrible. It's like, I think did Caine write it or direct it or something?
It's not a Harry Palmer movie, is it?
No. But it's sort of meant to be. But Hoskins is in that, of course. It's just a totally weird movie.
Sorry, I've just brought up the cover for Blue Ice, and it's another one of these films which has got this Caine on the front. I mean, that's one of the most 80s film covers I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's another one of these movies where Caine's wearing this expression of, what have I become? It's like, how did I get into this? What am I doing? You know, I'm 55 years old and I'm doing an action movie.
Yeah. Greta Scacchi, that's the one from Shattered. And it's Bob Hoskins, Tom the Red-Faced Berenger, Corbin Burnson, and Joanne Whaley.
He's J. Edgar Hoover in Nixon as well. I forgot that.
Yeah, we should do a Hoskins series. Is what we should do.
We could do that. He's also in.
But I just want to see these weird ones, rather than the one
with John Travolta and Andy McDowell and William Hurt called Michael.
Oh yeah, that's the one about the angel. That's terrible.
Oh my God, it's that. He's in that.
He's in Hollywoodland though. That was a really good movie, with Brody and Affleck and Diane Lane.
Is that the one Affleck directed?
No. It was just before Affleck directed Gone Baby Gone. It was like the first time Affleck had done like a proper serious role that people took notice for. He plays Eddie Mannix, which is like a Hollywood agent. I could so go for watching some of these. He's in Doomsday, of course.
With Ryan Gosling and Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts. Never heard of that.
Which movie?
Stay.
Stay?
Yeah, with Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts and Ryan Gosling.
Oh, it's a Mark Forster movie.
Yeah. So there are, there is an awful lot of randomness to to be had with Bob.
Yeah.
So what would you say your favourite Bob performance is? Because I'd probably have to stick with The Long Good Friday. Definitely, I can't think there's. I'd love to be alternative and come up with something else, but I think that genuinely might be the best performance.
Well, I don't know. It's either that or Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa possibly has more range to it. If you're talking about just the performances rather than the movie. Of course, I'm going to put on The Long Good Friday a little more often because it's more pulpy and less...
Yeah, but him in it, though.
Gritty and seedy. It's
amazing. I mean, the scene in that... that's another amazing Hoskins scene is when because Long Good Friday had anyone who hasn't seen The Long Good Friday has to see The Long Good Friday.
Definitely.
It is easily one of the top 2 best ever British gangster movies, I'd say.
It's one of the top 10 gangster movies, full stop, anywhere. Yeah,
it's really, really good. But there's a scene in that where, because basically it's about, he plays a guy called Harold Shand, who is like this crime overlord in East London. And there's a scene in it where he's some kind of other gang or someone is attacking him, and there's been bombs going off and people being shot and all this kind of thing, just as he's trying to make a big deal and turn legitimate. And there's this scene where he's driving around with his enforcer who's called Razors, and he's looking out the window and he says like, "Who's having a go at me?" And it's brilliant because he's the most detestable character. I mean, he's just an awful person. He's racist. He's cynical. He's brutal. He's a killer. He's a terrible person. But you're so with him. I mean, you are so with him the whole way through the movie, wanting him to come out on top. Like, you totally are. He does the most horrendously violent things in it as well. Just like awful, horrible, violent things. But with this kind of chilling throwaway humour the whole way through, and he's completely terrifying, and he's brilliant. I mean, he's just awesome in it, and the whole movie's like not only a really good gangster movie, but has this whole like geopolitical thing going on in it, and I mean, it's just brilliant.
Well, it helps that him and Mirren work so well together. It helps that she's
amazing in that film.
She's amazing. It helps that she is like truly his right-hand man. Like she's not looking for younger, more attractive. She's looking for power and strength and intelligence, and there's a real relationship there with Harold. And it works that everyone else around him is so either utterly useless or utterly Weasley and despicable that, of course, he ends up being the hero of the piece.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the fact that the people who are having a go at him are blowing people up. It's not like they're, at least when he goes and does his, hustles or rough-ups or whatever, it's personal. You know who's doing what to whom, you know why it's happening. There's a certain code to it. If you're going to,
Yeah.
He
only killed...
Yeah, whereas he's not indiscriminately just bombing people. Do you know what I have found, though, that I'd be really interested to see? Him and Lithgow made a Don Quixote movie for TV by Peter Yates.
What's that called?
Don Quixote.
What year?
From 2000.
Bloody hell.
2 hours long. He plays Sancho Panza and Lithgow plays Don Quixote. And Isabella Rossellini is in it.
Bloody hell.
I could really go for watching that as well.
I could well go for that. That sounds amazing. Well, this is the guy who directed Bullet.
Peter Yates.
Yeah, it is. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
And the Friends of Eddie Coyle.
Yep.
Bloody hell. I've got to see that. Mm-hmm. I'll definitely see that.
Have you seen him in
Maybe we should do a Peter Yates season. Bloody hell.
Have you seen him in Unleashed with Jet Li and Morgan Freeman?
No, I haven't. That sounds remarkable as well.
It's up in Scotland. Morgan Freeman is like a blind piano tuner. Jet Li is like this confused, wandering orphan boy, and Bob Hoskins is his old megalomaniacal master. And it's actually really good. It's actually well worth watching.
Because another one he's in that he was in the Shane Meadows movie, wasn't he?
He was in two. He was in Room for Romeo Brass, and he was in 24/7.
24/7. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, and I haven't seen 24/7.
Do you know the movie I'd also like to really see? I'd really, really like to see Last Orders, because that's him, Caine, Mirren, David Hemmings, Ray Winston. How have I not seen Last Orders? I have to immediately see Last Orders. It's like a bunch of old chums in a pub. How have I not seen that? Tom Courtney's in it. David Hemmings is in it. Bob Hoskins, Helen Mirren, Ray Winston. Okay, so this is it. This is what we have to do. We have to do the Caine and Hoskins. We have to do Blue Ice. Last Orders.
I could well go for that.
Blue Ice, because there's a list here. One of the 6 films that have featured both Bob Hoskins and Michael Caine. Blue Ice, Last Orders, Mona Lisa, which we've already done on the show, Sweet Liberty, Beyond the Limit, and World War II, When Lions Roared.
Oh my God, Sweet Liberty. That's a lot of crap sounding stuff there. Sweet Liberty. Is this on IMDb?
Yeah.
This list. And Beyond the Limit, that doesn't look... that looks like it might be a rough ride. Dr. Eduardo Pla, despite the name, is an Anglo working in a Latin American country. The cover, by the way, looks like the cover from a 70s porn of some description.
Dude, stop whatever you're doing and go look at World War II, When Lions Roared. It's Caine, Lithgow and Hoskins in 3 of the funniest photographs you've ever seen. You have to go see it right now.
Oh my God. Sorry, I can't believe I just laughed like that. But
Hoskins
Michael Caine appears to be playing Stalin. Which,
he is Stalin, yeah.
Which how have I not heard about this and not seen it at least 10 times by now?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
It's Lithgow is FDR. Hoskins is Winston Churchill.
6 Emmy Award nominations. What?
Yeah. Isn't that incredible?
That's one of the most amazing film covers I've ever seen in my entire life.
Tell me this doesn't make you want to do a Caine and Hoskins series.
We're definitely doing a Caine and Hoskins series because I am definitely watching that. There's absolutely no question about that. I'm watching that. Put it this way, I would really like to do as a single standalone episode Hoskins and Caine together, because I think that is a brilliant little trilogy of mad films that we could do there. Don't you reckon? I think that's a good standalone episode.
What, Last Orders, Blue Ice, and the World War II one?
Yeah. And we could do outside of that, because Caine's just done like a gazillion films.
Yeah.
and so is Keaton. I mean, it's not like there isn't plenty to choose from there. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, completely.
Like even the 80s and 90s there's just loads to work with.
But I also want to see Sweet Liberty. I don't want to do like 4 movies. We could break it up into 2 episodes, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially as World War II is going to be 3 hours worth of ponderous bureaucracy. Because it's just about a meeting. It's like about a conference that they had. It's not about like fighting or anything.
I'm actually really quite up for that because I love all that. You know me. I love that history. So
oh yeah, you love all that stuff.
I'll be well into that.
But yeah, I quite like Michael Keaton, Michael Caine. I quite like the way that sounds. And I can always watch Michael Caine. And then we can do movies like The Island and some of his really obscure B movies.
Yeah, I'd definitely go for that.
Because what have we got for Keaton?
Well, there's shitloads of Keaton.
Yeah, but I want to go back to the 80s. We've got to do like stuff like Johnny Dangerously and Gung Ho. Okay, so no, they didn't do a movie together. I thought they were in The Squeeze together. That's the movie that he did, but it's...
We could do Mr. Mom, his John Hughes film. He did a John Hughes film? My God.
Yeah, it's meant to be awful, though. Looking at Keaton, the ones I'd be interested in doing is Night Shift. We could do Mr. Mom if you like. I mean, it's going to be awful, but we could do it. But Night Shift, definitely interested in Night Shift, definitely interested in Johnny Dangerously.
And Shelley Long in a Ron Howard movie.
Yeah. The Squeeze, I could definitely go for The Squeeze. Clean and Sober, The Dream Team, Pacific Heights, One Good Cop. I'd do all of these in an instant. My Life, The Paper, Speechless. What's Speechless? That's a rom-com with Gina Davis and Ernie Hudson. Is there anything more ludicrous than Ernie Hudson? Quicksand. Yes, dude. Quicksand is the one with him and Caine. Look it up. They've done a movie together. And it looks awful. In 2003, Quicksand.
Ooh.
Michael Caine and Michael Keaton. After a workaholic banker journeys to Monaco to investigate the suspicious activities of a company, he finds himself framed for murder and running for his life. Quicksand. There we go. Caine and Keaton have been in the same fucking movie. Perfect.
Those sunglasses not looking good on Keaton's face there.
No.
That's not working.
But look at Caine looking confused. It is the point where Caine is just like, what am I doing? But there we go. They've been in a movie together.
See, this Caine movie, he did a movie with Dylan Moran. Did you know that?
Oh, the actors, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty awful from what I remember.
Is it really?
Yeah, any movie that involves him getting into drag is pretty awful.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
But there's plenty of Keaton we could be getting on with. Plenty of Keaton. I'm most interested in 80s Keaton, but I would definitely watch Quicksand because it has them both in it. I say we end with Quicksand. We end the series with Quicksand.
Sounds good to me, man. I'm going to have to turn it now because I'm jigging.
Yeah, thanks ever so much. So let's wrap it up then. So, Glazer, would you recommend Under the Skin?
Well, I don't know. What do you reckon?
I would recommend Sexy Beast.
Yeah, same here. I guess what it is that it asks a bit much of you and doesn't give quite enough Under the Skin. It's not. I mean, it was a disappointment in how it didn't quite get there, but the main thing is that I think just that balance of like, you know, the time you're giving the film and what it's giving you was just not quite there for me. But loads of brilliant things in it, and I would definitely see whatever he does next, probably.
And based on Sexy Beast and Under the Skin, would you go back and watch Birth with Nicole Kidman, which is his only other feature film?
No. No, I wouldn't. So I don't like Nicole Kidman. I
can't stand her either.
Yeah. But no, I probably wouldn't watch that. But I would definitely watch the next one though, because he's definitely a big talent and just has like really, really crazy visuals up his sleeve. So why not? You know.
Oh, he didn't write Sexy Beast. Oh, that makes more sense. I thought he wrote and directed it. He didn't. In fact, he doesn't do writing by the looks of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, just give the guy a good script.
Yeah, he didn't even write Under the Skin, which is remarkable considering there are no lines in it.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I mean, in that case, just give the guy a good script and I'll be there, definitely, because he's definitely a big talent. No doubt.
Definitely. All right, man.
Excellent. All right, well, lovely to be on, as always.
Yes, wonderful to have you on the show, sir. And, great talking to you, man. And speak soon.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Hi, I'd like to give a shout out to Griffin Madill, who asked last week, the song that closes out episode 121 is pretty incredible. Is this one of Jon's? If so, how might one get a full MP3 of it? Well, it's not just available yet, but it will be available soon over where all our music is available at miskplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com. Why don't you go there, listen to some of the music, like the song that's coming up now, and purchase or download some of the songs there. Some of them are free, some of them are a small fee. So go to miskplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com and enjoy some of the music that is all mine, that I do for the show, and I also do aside from the show. And as I said, the song that closes out episode 121 will be available shortly on that site. But until then, go over to miskplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com and have a look around and have a listen. Enjoy.
Well, I got fish face warm from the sun to shake this town around your thumb. Put out the bucket, the stall is on fire. Hold my hand, we're climbing higher. I got the good grace to get out of your way. I got a great green grass that looks big. Hey, if you got the patience, I'll bring the choir. Wrap my coattails as that goes high, higher. It goes higher. Well, the wheels on the runway are flying the suit. Bet all your money on the comedy troops. Some porcelain lipstick and a parachute's all you need in a life like this. All you need in a life like this. Take cheese, grater knuckles over bad mouths to the waitress cowers in the corner till the wedding is through. The judge shouts at the jury while the plaintiff perspires. Go a back door out of here. It's going higher. It's going higher. Just pass on the pancakes, leave them in your will. You can't take cards while it's changing the till. You got 6 more years for the truth to transpire. Grab that old rope to go higher. We're going higher. Well, there's a vandal in the pet store, raining in the car. Take all of your advice from the one behind the bar. You be the shut and see if that'll get you far. You ain't ready yet. No. For a life like this. No, you ain't ready, my friend. For a life like this, and for a life like this. pie in the soup. Bet all your money on a comedy troupe. Some post a little lipstick and a parachute. So we need in a life like this. Ooh, in a life like this. Ooh, in a life like this.
There are men, and then there are second unit podcast men. The podcast you've just been listening to is part of the Second Unit Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at 2upn.blogspot.com or on Facebook under the Second Unit Podcast Network. Our fantastic list of shows include Drunk on VHS, We Came from the Basement, No Budget Nightmares, The After Movie Diner, Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid, and Bloodbaths and Boomsticks. Take one podcast into the shower. Don't be a blithering idiot, Alan. We can give you the multiple podcast cleansing system all in one place that your hair deserves. Our programming is available across all platforms from iTunes to Podomatic, TalkShoe to Stitcher, so you have absolutely no excuse. Listen today, and a free naked person of your choice will be shipped from Thailand to your door in a matter of weeks. The Second Unit Podcast Network, bringing you the action and leaving the boring stuff to the other guys. Bloody hell. Who does a girl have to blow around here to get a decent beverage?